folks, and welcome to my new show, Mind Out, Mind Up. Now, I gave you guys a little sneak preview earlier this week of what you could expect from my show, and luckily for me, there are a lot of people that are covering Obamagate, and a lot of people who are, what are they calling it, the Biden Gate, and the coronavirus. There are people covering that, and I just decided that for this week, that I was going to discuss the issue of gender dysphoria, or as society likes to call it, transgenderism. Now, that is a bunch of hogwash. I mean, I could beat around the bush, I could be nice about it, but I'm done with being nice. There's too many people out there that are lying to cameras and normalizing hogwash, and I'm just over playing the nice guy. Let's call a spade, folks. Transgenders, you don't actually exist. You suffer from a mental health disorder that is called gender dysphoria. Look it up. It is a thing. And I don't mean Google it either, because Google has a habit of saying things about one thing that really isn't true. That's just a fact. Now, before I actually go in depth about, the different conversations I've had with different individuals about people suffering from gender dysphoria, I want you guys to know that this week of episodes, we're going to cover how this way of thinking, or normalizing this whole thing, and how it affects our society. You're going to get that this week, right? How it affects the rights of men and women. That's going to be coming in the next episode. How we've seen it normalized in mainstream, right? That's going to be another episode. We're going in depth about this issue because I don't feel enough people are actually covering it, right? I mean, we're even at the point where there are transgenders identifying as conservatives. That is a bunch of hogwash. It is. Now, before I tell you about what I think about transgender conservatives, I'm going to tell you about different conversations that I've had with different individuals. One conversation that pops into my mind is a conversation that I had with a liberal Christian. Now, this individual is a member of my family, so I'm not going to go in depth with what their name is or what they do, but understand that they are a liberal Christian, and they played a huge role in my coming up in faith and in logic. Beforehand, right, at one point, this individual used to think that people who called themselves transgenders were crazy. I don't know what happened, because a few weeks later, when we had basically the same conversation, her mindset on the issue had changed. It went from them being cuckoo cuckoo, which is what they are, to no, these people are suffering. They feel they were born in the wrong body, and we must help them. Yes, you're right. We should help them. It's called therapy, not electric shock, right? That should just not be a thing. But you should probably sit down with a shrink and figure out what traumatized this individual. Did it happen to you as a child? Or did it happen to you when you were married to a woman who emasculated you every single day and you didn't know what the hell to do with yourself? That, my friends, is Bruce Jenner, emasculated by his wife throughout the marriage, and instead of leaving her like any man would have, or beating her like most violent men would have, he decided that I couldn't cope, so I'm going to become a woman. That's the best way I can handle how my wife treated me for however long. No, folks. How does a Christian, right, liberal or not, it doesn't even matter about what side of the aisle you fall on. As a Christian, how could you possibly think that these people, these cuckoo individuals, are right? How could you possibly think that as a Christian? The whole point of a transgender is that they feel that God put them in the wrong body. That is not a faith. Not in any way is it a faith, but you call yourself Christian. You call yourself a Christian, but yet you refuse to see how them saying I was born in the wrong body implicates God in making a mistake. That implies God made a mistake at their birth. You mean our Almighty? You mean I am that I am, made a mistake? You mean the being that freed the Hebrews made a mistake? You mean the Almighty who gave us a gift in Jesus Christ, whose Son died for our sins, made a mistake? That's what you acknowledge when you acknowledge their hogwash. That's how I feel. Now, I couldn't very well say it that way to the liberal Christian because they were my elders, but I made it very clear. No. They are not born in the wrong body. They have been traumatized. And in some cases, it's not even about trauma, right? It's about confusion. You're teaching children of this generation, or generations past my age, of course, young generations, that if you're a boy and you're more in tune with your emotions, that you're meant to be a girl. And if you're a young girl who enjoys sports or is much more masculine or is a tomboy, even before you hit puberty, you're meant to be a boy. You're telling 8-year-old boys who may cry because something hurts, who may cry because someone insulted them. No, you got to teach them how to deal, how to cope. But instead of doing that, we tell them they're meant to be another sex. That's wrong. You're confusing them. And so as they grow up, when they become a 14-year-old teenager, a 14-year-old boy, or a 14-year-old girl, by that point, they feel they were meant to be something else, because when they were showing that they were feminine as a young boy, or showing that they were more masculine as a 9-year-old girl, by the time they're a teenager, you would up and convince them that they're meant to be the other sex. How was that rational? How is that rational? How? It isn't. You're confusing children. You're confusing the bejesus out of them. And it's not fair to the child. It isn't. And to those parents to the individuals, right, to the liberal Christians who believe in the transgenderism, it's not okay. It is not. You don't get to just hurt the child by helping them believe in a delusion. That's driving them crazy. So for you liberal Christians out there, who gives a crap what side of the aisle you're on? If you say that you are a person of faith, then you know that these individuals aren't actually a gender. They are not. There is a purpose of man and of woman. You're a Christian. You know that there's a purpose for man and for woman. You know this. There is no such thing as a third gender. If there were meant to be, God would have put one here in the first place. But you know what? He created Adam and Eve. He created Adam and Eve. Who was it? Cuckoo, Kachu, Boo, the fool, third gender? That's where we're at now? That all of a sudden that there's a third? That's hogwash. A load. Bullshit. Excuse my French for any of you who are my elders. But you catch my drift. There's another conversation that I had with someone. This person is a conservative. I've been on the show before. He had told me that he had a transgender conservative on his show. And I remember thinking, gosh, there's no such thing. There is no such thing, folks. There's no such thing as a transgender conservative. I'm going to tell you why they're associating themselves as conservatives, because they believe being Republican makes you conservative, and that is all wrong. Because if that were the case, then Bush would have been a conservative, which he wasn't. He was a cronyist. He was a Republican that believed in big government. That's not conservative. So I don't want to hear just because you're Republican, you're conservative. Transgenders can be Republican simply because they don't believe that the government should intervene in their way of life. And that's what most conservatives think, right? We believe in limited government. We don't believe that the government should intervene in our life and our choices, how we make money as long as it's legal. The decisions we choose to make in our personal lives, we don't want the government to intervene. These are conservative principles, and they're in alignment with the Republican agenda. And that's why transgenders believe that they are conservative. That's hogwash. Conservatism is rooted in faith and in logic, but transgenders are rooted in neither. In fact, they are the complete opposite. To hear a transgender conservative is something like a quiet storm, right? An oxymoron. It doesn't exist. It does not happen. Have you ever really, if you hear storms, then it's not quiet. And that's the point that I'm making about these transgenders. You are not for real. You're cuckoo, and you need to be in a mental health treatment. You should be. But what you're doing is you're going around normalizing this BS, teaching it to children and confusing the hell out of them. So now it's not even a trauma that makes them feel this way. It's the parents' teachings or the school's teachings or teachings that you're getting from the mainstream, which we're going to go in depth about over the course of the next few episodes. We're going to talk about how normalizing gender dysphoria, because that is what it is, folks. Gender dysphoria. That is the term for what they're suffering from. But sometimes it's caused from trauma, and others it's caused by influence. And we're going to go in depth about the influence part, because it's not just about an individual suffering a trauma that makes them feel they're meant to be the opposite sex. It's not just that. It's the education. It's what we're seeing in the mainstream. You're normalizing this bogusness. That's what you're doing. All these conversations that I've had, I remember having conversation. You guys can actually find this on my YouTube. I sat down with a stand-up comedian. He's also a business owner. His name is Prince Adam. And he told me a story one time about how he was driving Lyft. You guys got to go back and watch the episode. It's hilarious. But I'm going to reiterate the story because it cracks me up every time. He was driving Lyft or Uber, one of those apps. And he was using his wife's account, right? Because, you know, she was driving. So he uses her account. The woman gets into the car and she notices that he's a man, not a woman. And so she starts going off, oh, you're not the Uber person in the picture. Who are you? This is all kinds of wrong. This is illegal, yada, yada, and so forth. He turns around and says, Miss, I am a transgender and I couldn't afford my hormone treatments this week and I am offended. You know what the woman said? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean to. My ignorance is why you people can't be who you are, or something along the lines of that. When he told me this story, I busted out laughing. Because that was a clear case of him taking advantage of this woman's ignorance. And the ignorance isn't that she, didn't recognize that he was a transgender. Her ignorance is that she believed him when he said that I forgot, I didn't take my hormone treatment this week. She bought that and then tipped him $20 because she was the ignorant one. No, lady, you were right. Your Uber account says a woman named Blam is coming to pick you up, but Prince Adam is in the front seat. Yeah, you have every right to be mad as hell, because how do I know that you're not some cartel dude trying to kill me? It was supposed to be a woman sitting in that front seat, and it was a man, and she was right to be angry with him, but to get out of it, he claimed to be a woman, a trans woman who couldn't afford my hormone treatments. What? I busted out laughing. How ignorant could she be? That is what's happening in this society. And you're $20 short because you were cuckoo. And you bought into the narrative of this delusion. That is ridiculous, people. Like, what? This is the world that we live in today. This is the country that we live in. Gosh, people, come on. Come on. Get him a therapist. And you know what bothers me? You guys, I'm not even in front, and I'm supposed to be saving this for the next episode, and I'll reiterate it, but I got to say it. I just watched the interview that Megyn Kelly had with Laverne Cox, and the first 5 minutes of the interview, Laverne was talking about how, when I was a little boy. You mean when you were younger, you were still a man when I was a boy. What do you mean? All right, so you cut your penis off, and your face looks like a man with lipstick. I don't even understand. Like, what do you mean? The whole first 5 minutes, you guys, right? Because Laverne got me confused. You see, I'm struggling with the he, she pronouns, people. Long story short, everything that Laverne was saying made it seem like that Laverne was supposed to be gay. I found myself attracted to boys, not girls, in the 3rd grade. I mean, she was clearly hypersexual when he was a boy, clearly. Because in the 3rd grade, at 8 years old, you're attracted to boys. Okay, but then why not just grow up to be a gay man? I mean, that's a thing, right? People are associating a mental health disorder with sexuality. Why? You're a man who is attracted to men, so just be gay. Magic Johnson's son is flamboyant as a mofo, but he loves to be a man. Ellen DeGeneres, she loves herself some women, but she loves to be a woman. She didn't grow up to say, oh no, because I'm attracted to women, I'm supposed to be a man. No, it's not what happens. I know homosexuals. I know them. They're in my family, they're friends, they're colleagues, and they are happy to be the sex that they are. My gay male friends, they're happy to be men. They love being men. The gay women that I know, they love being women. So what the hell did you associate gender dysphoria with sexuality for? In fact, if I were gay myself, I'd be mad as hell that you are associating a way of life with a mental health disorder. I'd be offended. I'd be mad as hell. How dare you associate a mental health disorder with a choice of sexuality? Yes, it's a choice, and maybe you can debate back and forth if you think you were born this way, but the point of the matter is you're not the crazy one. Gay people are not the crazy ones. Transgenders are. That's just the reality of it, folks. And so when you hear people normalizing it, no, talk back to it. You need to stand up against it. Ben Shapiro is right. Gender dysphoria, and stop normalizing it. Because I guarantee you, this will be the gateway to start normalizing a whole bunch of other mental health disorders. Rumor has it California is trying to legalize pedophilia. What? So this is what we are now? We are a society who, if we feel too many people are suffering from a mental health disorder, we have to normalize it. And it's not always about trauma, you guys. It's not. You're confusing them. You are confusing children. You're confusing the whole country. And people don't know how to have conversations without triggering anyone. A child playing with the wrong toys means he's supposed to be a little girl. What? How about his G.I. Joe needed a damsel? How about I'm playing with little Bo Peep because Woody has to save her? That just makes sense. Was Andy supposed to be a girl in Toy Story because he was playing with little Bo Peep? No, he wasn't. Woody needed a damsel. He needed someone to save. So he borrowed his little sister's little Bo Peep, made little Bo Peep the damsel in distress. And I'm talking about the first one, you guys, not the fourth movie, because little Bo Peep was a badass. Side note. But that first movie, she needed Woody. But who could Woody save if Andy didn't go get her? If Andy didn't go get the toy of little Bo Peep, Woody have no one to save. But because what we are in society, if the little boy plays with a little girl doll, he's meant to be a girl. No, no, no. His Power Rangers needs a damsel. That's just what it is. Stop trying to attach your BS onto children. They are just that, children who don't know no better, who don't know anything about sex, who don't know nothing about genders. Boys just know that they pee standing up. That's it. That's all little boys know. But what you're trying to tell them is that if they're more in tune with their feelings, that they're supposed to be girls. No, they're children. They don't know how to cope with nothing. You're supposed to teach them how to do that. But instead of teaching them properly, you just laid on thick. Sweetie, son, sit down. I got to tell you something. Because of how you've been acting lately, because, the other boy in the school said something that hurt your feelings and you were crying, it's telling me that you're more in tune with your emotions, son, and I think you were meant to be a girl. And if you lay that on thick enough, by the time that your 9-year-old son becomes a 16-year-old boy, he's going to be saying, I'm meant to be a girl. And you know what's going to really mess him up? What's going to really mess him up is that all the while you're telling him he's meant to be a girl, he's still probably attracted to girls. So you're trying to turn what would be a straight young man into a lesbian woman. That's what you're trying to do. I mean, that's me being redundant because lesbians are women, but still, catch my drift? You're confusing the hell out of them. How I'm confused. What the hell are you going to tell them? Oh, no. Here's another one. I saw something on Facebook, right, where there was an image of a trans couple, right? The trans man was pregnant. Hear what I said. The trans man who biologically born a woman was pregnant. So though she's taken hormones and got the beard and got the muscles, you're pregnant. And now the trans woman born biologically a man is the one that got the trans man pregnant in the first place. So now what's going to happen is when the child is born, the child is going to believe that the trans man is his father, when really biologically that's his mother. And the child's also going to believe that the trans woman is his mother, but really his biological father. And so when the kid goes out into school and he's learning sex education and he's learning that daddies get mommies pregnant and that only mommies can be pregnant, but wait a minute, my dad had me. What? So now what happens to the child when the child gets home and says, mommy, talking to the trans woman, of course, who was biologically born a man, mommy, my teacher says that it's impossible for you to have babies. But that daddy, who is the trans man, biologically born a woman, that's daddy. Daddy, you had me, not mommy. You see? But now, what are those parents going to do? Are you going to lock the child up because he said something offensive because they said that you both were screwed up? What the hell? I was confused and just trying to break that down, you guys. I'm not even going to front because I'm like, wait a minute. The trans man is biologically born a woman and the trans woman is biologically born a man. But the boy, the son or the child coming home from school just found out that only mommies can have babies. But why is daddy, who's a woman, carrying me? The baby photos, right? The pregnancy photos clearly show that daddy, the trans man, I mean, was pregnant, not the trans woman who the child is calling mommy. That is ridiculous. It's that kind of confusion that we're dealing with in this country. It's that kind of delusion that they're forcing us to live in. Now, as Christians, it's hogwash, and they need to push back against it. And as conservatives, stop saying that they are such a thing of a transgender conservative. It doesn't exist. It doesn't. In fact, let's stop calling it transgenderism. Let's start calling it what the hell it is. Gender dysphoria. Stop acknowledging it as a gender, because by doing that, you're going to start messing with things that, no lie, feminists should have issue with. They just should. And we're going to go more in depth with that in the next episode, but come on. Come on. We're changing too many things to adapt their way of thinking. That's ridiculous. If someone who's schizophrenic is living in a delusion, you're not supposed to live in it with them. You're supposed to get them treatment. Why is it any different with someone who has gender dysphoria? Why is it any different? Someone who suffers from bad hallucinations because of whatever mental health disorder that they have. You're not supposed to live in the delusion with them. You're not supposed to let them believe that what they're seeing is real. You get them treatment immediately. Why is it different with gender dysphoria patients? Why are we saying that this is supposed to be what they're not meant to be what they were born as? But if you're an atheist who believes in science, then you know this is hogwash. If you're a Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, Satanist, you know this is bullshit. Excuse my language. Because even Satanists know that it's a lie. They just want people to live in the delusion. It doesn't matter what religion you are. You know it's a lie. You know it is. Satanists just choose to live in the delusion. Because all this confusion gives them more power. That's where we're at in today's society. We're choosing to live in a delusion, to promote this delusion. And as much as I love Megyn Kelly, it was a fluff piece with Laverne Cox. She should have hit harder. Wait a minute. So your mother took you to therapy, said that she didn't want to stay in therapy with you because you were going to get testosterone injections in the 8th grade, but you decided that you wanted to get injections to make you a woman? What? So what the hell? Why didn't you just get the treatments, the testosterone treatments then? If you were already going to get shot up with some other hormones, why not just do what would have made you better? That would have healed you. that would have made you your best self. Like, what the hell? Like, if you still wanted to become an actor, you still could have done that. You wanted to be an actor that dressed in drag, you could have done that. Look at Tyler Perry. He was Medea for like most of my life. But he's a man, isn't he? Most black male comedian actors dressed up like women for mad long in their careers. It's fine, but they're men. They're men. It's fucking Bruce Jenner's fault, man. Excuse my language, but it is. It's his fault. He came out because he couldn't cope with his wife. What the hell, man? Go to therapy. Go to therapy. There's something wrong in your head. So just go deal with it. Go take care of it. When someone slips into a depression, you're supposed to go to therapy. When someone is suffering from schizophrenia, you go to therapy. When you suffer from a trauma, you go to therapy. If you're someone who finds yourself having inappropriate feelings for children before they commit a crime, what do? They go to therapy. Why are we treating gender dysphoria any differently? Why? Oh, well, because the mainstream says so. The mainstream says so. Screw the mainstream, because the mainstream is what's screwing the children up. That's what's happening. You create enough confusion, people will go crazy. And that's where we're at. So for this week of episodes, we're going to be going in depth about gender dysphoria, individuals who suffer from gender dysphoria, and how normalizing it affects laws, how we're seeing it affect the children, how it will infringe on rights of women and men. And I'm going to call a couple of people out too. I'm not doing that today. So if you want to know who I'm going to call out, you got to watch the next 2 episodes. There are a lot of people to call out. A lot of people who are guilty of normalizing this way of thinking, this craziness, because that's what it is. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be pushed back upon. You need to push back on it. I'm not buying into no delusion. Now I'm all for being polite. Because granted, I work in an industry where I got to be polite to people. And I got to check my opinions at the door. Because I got a job to do. But ultimately, if you don't treat it as a problem, as a mental health problem, you're only hurting those individuals that much more. And so that's what we're going to talk about for the next couple of episodes. Because I'm over it. And like I said, I'm done being nice. That's why I created this new show. I'm done being nice. I know I'm swearing a little bit more than I used to, but come on, folks. I mean, how much more of this are we going to take? I can't anymore. I can't. We need to start actually holding people to account. You need to actually start holding these people who are normalizing gender dysphoria to account. Criticizing those who are raising their children as such. Criticizing those who are in society, portraying themselves to be something that they were not born as. Push back on the ideology that God made a mistake. I'm over it. And I know all of you are too. So stay tuned for the next few episodes, because again, we're going to talk about how all of this comes into play as far as our rights as American women and American men. And I'm going to call out a couple of people in the mainstream who are just doing it all kinds of wrong. My name is Asia Branch. I am your host of Mind Out, Mind Up, and I will see you all on the next episode. Talk soon.